Welcome to Rally the Tartans, where ancient echoes rise with every throw, where clans gather, steel meets stone, and the past walks beside us. We're lifting culture, throwing tradition, and celebrating the warriors, the history, and the heart of the Highland Games. I'm your host, Michael Paul Wolfgar Lewis. Let's rally the Tartans. Welcome back to Rally the Tartans. Now for episode 3. If you've been with us from the start, you know the show is all about celebrating the Highland Games, Scottish culture, and the incredible communities that keep these traditions alive. Back in episode 1, we went straight to the source, exploring the origins of the Highland Games. We looked at where they began, how they evolved, and why they are such a powerful blend of sport and tradition. Then in episode 2, we dove deep into one of the game's most iconic events, the caber toss. We broke down the art and the science behind it, and why watching a caber fly through the air still inspires crowds around the world. And now, in episode 3, we're stepping off the competition field and into one of the boldest, most recognizable symbols of Scotland. Kilts and tartans. These aren't just fabrics and patterns, they're living history, threads of identity, pride, and heritage woven into every stripe and color. Today we'll uncover how tartans became clan identifiers, how kilts evolved from battlefield gear to cultural icons, and why these traditions still matter in the modern world. Joining me later in the episode for a wonderful conversation is a very special guest to me, Adam Campbell, Utah State Commissioner, trustee of the Clan Campbell Society of North America, and chairman of the Commissioner Resource and Community Outreach Committee. Adam brings both knowledge and passion for Scottish heritage, and he'll help us understand how clan societies are growing today and how tartans connect us across time and culture. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank everybody enough for being so supportive of this venture with Rally the Tartans. I have put out the call and people are starting to flock to us in droves, and that means the world to me. It is truly the Highlander culture to support each other, and I love it. It gives me goosebumps. It sends chills down my body in the best way possible. I can't thank everybody enough that has dealt with all my audio, visual errors and getting these interviews together, and the people that have just honored me with allowing me to talk to them has been absolutely incredible. The last couple weeks have also been heating up in the Highland Games world. It is now September 1st when this episode drops, and as you all know, September heats up all across the country. One very special one for myself is the one in Kentucky, the Nazca Legends, hosted by Gary Overfeld himself. And then we'll have Masters Worlds coming up as well. Super excited to jump into those and see exactly who is atop the leaderboard to start September. And then when we come back to you at the end of the month, who is there at the top then. There's nothing like getting to the podium. It's a lot of hard work before it. So let's go ahead and jump right in to our Highland Games recap. All right, holy smokes, what an August. Man, I tell you, I am super disappointed in myself for not getting to a few of these games, but coaching responsibilities keep me pretty busy. August just started out with just the massive Dublin Irish Fest that was just stacked. A lot of great citywide or community-based events like Highland Fling out in Utah, the Jamestown in New York, the 82nd, Central New York Scottish Games, and of course we ended with just some killer games. Maine Highland Games on the 16th, and then we had the Virginia Scottish Games just this past weekend, August 30th, and man, these classes that they are producing are just getting better, in my opinion. Of course, I am not a long time resident in the Highland Games. It's just been a few years for myself. But to me, now that COVID is basically over, I'm starting to see a huge growth in people getting out and the communities bringing these games back together and everybody getting out there and having a fantastic time. I just cannot believe what I'm seeing. And just to swing over to the pro men's real quick, Kyle Lyle, who actually follows me on TikTok and Instagram, super honored for that, Mr. Kyle. Would love to have you on the show one day. But what a boss, man. He is leading the pack by over 800 points right now in the pro men ranking. Vlad, I believe I follow Vlad, and I think he just started following me as well. Vlad Tulrich, and I probably messed up that name. I apologize, sir. But the surprise to me was Spencer Tyler coming in at third place. The man shows up to 2 games and completely kills it. What a beast of an athlete Mr. Spencer Tyler is. Guys, if you guys and girls, if you don't get a chance to get out to an event with pro athletes, you have to watch it. You got to get out there and just enjoy the show. I mean, these athletes are spectacular. If you're a track and field person, I would just put these folks up against the best of the best, in track and field, because they are just elite performers, elite athletes, and I can't stress enough how amazing our pro class is these days. You definitely got to get out and show them some love. Definitely see a name on there that breaks my heart, Mr. Matthew McDougall. He announced his retirement last month. Very sad to hear that. I will probably continue to whine about that for the rest of the year, just because he's a great individual, and he had made a decision, and obviously he sticks with what he says. So super big shout out to all of the men in the pro rankings. Man, great job. That top 10 is just stacked, and I can't wait to get out to some games myself to see it. Kyle is just killing it, by the way. Massive heavy hammers. I mean, he is repetitively hitting 115 feet. I can't even tell you how impressive that is in my world. I absolutely love it. But the pro women are out there just making a splash. Top 5 still pretty close, pretty the same as last month. Miss Kendra Danzer, who is coming on this show at the end of next month. She will be on this show, and I believe if my predictions are correct, I think she'll crack into that top 5, or excuse me, that top 3. But our Marissa, and if I pronounce any of these names wrong, everybody, I definitely apologize. I'm just a super fan, and I'm getting the hang of it. But Miss Handy is absolutely killing the stones. Now, I'm a shot put coach, so that means she is probably so technically sound. I have not got to look at any video with her just yet. I actually, after the podcast airs today, we get everything up. I'll probably for the rest of the week be doing some research and watching some film on her, because she is, she's throwing a 40-foot Braemar stone. She's got a 51-foot open stone. Those are absolute bomb. One of my young ladies who's a shot putter in high school, it has yet to crack that 40 feet, and she is obviously in the top 10 of the high schools here in Indiana. However, she's right there. But this stone going 51 feet, that's so amazing. Huge shout out to some locals, folks that I've actually got to see on the field. Sarah Sparks is in the top 15. Let's see, Alyssa Van Vleck, and I messed that last name up. I apologize. She's up there. The Becca Lackey is right there at 15th. That's surprising. I thought she would have been a little higher than that. She's definitely a competitor from what I've seen on the field myself. I've been able to share a field and watch that. So, guys and girls, if you don't get a chance to get out and see these pro women, make sure you get to the upcoming games. And I know this is the recap, and we'll talk about games coming up a little later in the episode. But September is the month. We start seeing some of the biggest games in the country pop up right now. Huge fan of them. We got the Masters World Champion coming up. There's a ton of Masters women that are just killing it out there and doing fantastic things. So make sure you guys get out to a local games and you see what you got going on over there. I am looking at the amateur women ranking, and we have, just as the points go, we have something that I'm not sure what's going on. Maggie Wallace is in first place with 63.90 for her total points. She has some low stones, but it looks like her lightweight for distance, and it has to be that is an error. So, oh my lord. Um, so that would probably not be correct because I don't think a lightweight for distance 350. That would be all over. So, as Amarissa, amateur, I'm sure she was. So we'll kind of look at this. Let me dissect this just a little bit more and see what we got going on, because this lineup looks a little bit more interesting. But it looks like we have pros and pros and amateurs mixed together on the page. And that's probably on my end, right? That's a clerical error on me. I'm over here just kind of surfing around a heavy athlete. I don't know if anybody else is as disappointed and depressed like I am that NASGA is not working. Definitely a traditional historical site for anybody that has been in the Highland Games for a while. That's kind of that message board. I spent hours reading training logs, reading different questions and techniques and questions there that are specific to throwing and training. It's definitely sad to see, and an era gone by. But that's life. That's how the cookie crumbles, right? You get into things, and then it goes from there. So we're gonna go ahead and get into some of our sponsors real quick, just so we can get those out of the way, and then we'll be jumping in with our new guest today, Mr. Adam Campbell, who is a representative of Clan Campbell, and he is a brethren of mine because I am also a member of Clan Campbell. So we're going to kind of dive into kilts and tartans. But real quick, we have a couple of sponsors that we definitely want to highlight because they mean the world to us.
Ironheart Apparel was born from every lift, every mile, and every grind. Just when you think you nailed it, think again. A new challenge awaits. But you level up, always. 1 foot forward, relentless. And within the process, you find your purpose. Join the herd. Lead the herd.
This handshake, our e-commerce venture will surely prosper.
Indeed, Wizard. Your magic is impressive.
At EcomWiz, we help businesses grow and thrive in the digital world. We offer web design and e-commerce, digital marketing, social media management, sales channel setup, online store management, professional photography, videography and graphics, and e-commerce operations consulting.
I'm honored to be joined today by Adam Campbell, Utah State Commissioner of the Clan Campbell Society of North America, a trustee of Clan Campbell, and a chairman of the Commissioner Resource and Community Outreach Committee. Adam has dedicated years of service to strengthening Scottish heritage, expanding the reach of clan societies, and creating new opportunities for community engagement. He's also the recipient of the 2025 Commissioner of the Year Award for Clan Campbell. I'm excited to explore how clan societies have grown over the years in North America and back in Scotland, and what makes these societies meaningful for members today and relevant for future generations. Adam, welcome to Rally the Tartans. It's great to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really grateful to be on today.
Well, you are one of the biggest reasons for me to be a part of a clan society. You have definitely helped me grow personally, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that myself. But for our listeners out there, again, this is a Highland Games podcast that's been pretty athletic centric so far. Could you start by telling us a little about your role as state commissioner and a trustee for Clan Campbell?
Sure. Well, just to give you the framework, I mean, the clan societies today, a lot of them have like a trustee board, a whole bunch of people that are just making sure things are on the rails. And they might have an executive committee with a president, a secretary, and a VP. And then Clan Campbell's big enough. We have a lot of regional commissioners. I think there's like 22 regions now, quite a few of them. And then individual state commissioners. And even amongst that, there's deputy commissioners as well. So there's a pretty deep bench of, I think Clan Campbell's got close to 120 different volunteers just in the leadership group to be able to work it all through for close to about 2,000 members. And depending on how you do the math, anywhere from 850,000 to close to 2 million Campbells in the United States. So the society's a drop in the bucket right now. But being in part of the trustee board gives me an ability to see where the clan's going, to be able to interact with the executive committee. And we even have engagements and different things we can do with the chief of Clan Campbell, the Duke of Argyll, and his family to see where they want to take things in the future. So it goes from that level on the trustee board all the way down to the dude in the tent handing out candy and talking to people about tartans. So I get the whole gambit of everything from top to bottom, and it's really a great pleasure to be able to jump into that with everyone.
So it is obviously clear you have jumped into the deep end, but what drew you to volunteering with clan leadership in the first place?
Yeah, well, that one's an interesting story because I grew up and I knew that I had Campbell like Scottish clan heritage, but I didn't know what that meant. And I found out that my great uncle, my grandpa's brother, a gentleman by the name of D.R. Campbell, he was the president of the Clan Campbell Society in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he was in that role while I was going through college. So I just knew him as the quirky uncle that would wear a kilt and tell these kids all the stories. And I'm like, I don't know what's up with that. And then here am I like 15 years later, and I look at it and go, now I'm the weird dude telling quirky stories wearing the kilt at the family reunions. So DR was actually a huge, huge inspiration for me to jump into it and actually be involved. And as soon as I got a little bit more active in the Clan Society, I found that a lot of people knew him. So they looked at it and said, "Well, are you going to be somebody doing something out there from Utah and helping us change things and evolve things? Because that's what your family did out there in Utah." And I kind of looked at it, thought that actually sounds really fun. So yeah, count me in. And he's been kind of a source of inspiration in a lot of different things for quite a few years now.
That's awesome. It's always the uncle, right? The fun uncle.
Seems to be. Yep, he worked out well.
So, and many listeners obviously are going to recognize a strength in Scottish clans, but they might not really understand the deeper meaning of what it means to actually be a part of a clan society. So, what is it about being part of a clan society that you find important to your own identity?
Yeah. Well, I bet there's a lot of people listening out there that don't even know that the clan societies even exist. And to give you an idea, like back in the day, the clan societies were kind of like your counties, whatnot. So it was your clan was your political affiliation, it was your economic resource, it was your military strength, and this is back 300 or 400 years ago. And those groups had their own identities, and it just so happened that they called them clans in other places. There's different names they used all over the world. But in today's day and age, I mean, we don't need the military strength, the political vote, or some kind of economic backstop. So clan societies have kind of evolved a little bit more to be a historical society or a heritage society. But what I found that it's turned into more than anything else is it's a place within the world. I mean, you got 6 billion people on the planet, and you have a chance to interact with as many of those as you could possibly think of, and you'd never even scratch the surface of it. So for me, I look at it and go, if I'm going to interact with anybody on this planet, why not make it your own family? Why not be people that you have a shared background, a shared resource, some kind of common heritage? And it's kind of nice to look at the Clan Campbell and just say, I know that within that society here in North America, I have people who have values, morals, background, history, even some of the same crazy traditions or, heritage that I do. So, of all the things that I have to wonder about with the people I'm hanging out with at parties and at the tents and at games, I can scrape off a ton of stuff because I go, well, these guys are my family. Like, I get that. I know that they're not looking to do me harm. They're looking to do me good. They're here to take care of my kids. I have like a million uncles all over the country, and for me, I look at it and say that family society, the clan society, represents a big block of how about we just trim down the people you can hang out with and find some of the best that will associate with you the best. And I think that's what a lot of the clan society brings for people these days.
I gotcha. So let's kind of build on that, Adam, because this might be a new concept for some folks. What clan
Mhm.
societies are? Can you explain maybe a little bit of the history, why they were originally formed, and compare that to what they are today?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned a little bit, it had a lot more political affiliation. So for those of you who are Campbells, but there's a lot of other clans all up and down the Highlands out there that have clan background. And usually you're going to find some really good commonalities. You're going to find a chief of the clan, and he might be a duke or an earl, which are like some political affiliations, but it could just be a chief. You're going to find like territory and homelands, and maybe we'll throw up some maps so you guys can kind of see some of those. You're also going to find a couple of the ancient castles. So those might be bequeathed by the Scottish rulers or the English rulers at the time, depending on where it's at. But once you look at it and say, we got a chief, we got a territory, we got a couple of cool castles, that's where everybody has a very commonality after that. It's their lifestyle of farming back in the day, their economic resources, their military requirements. Like after the territories, the castles, and the chiefs, most of the clans up in the Scottish Highlands were very, very similar. So you'll find that there's actually more commonalities in the clans than there are differences, other than, I mean, everybody's got their own tartans. But that's where it started out, is just figuring out how do you identify yourself. So for all of you North Americans out there that kind of understand culture here, I just look at it and say you live within the country, but think of your clan as an independent county, and maybe your independent city has its own rulers or governors. You might have a mix of different clans, but those are kind of the cities within the county of the McDougalls or the McClellans or McLeods or Campbells, whoever it is. So that's kind of how it started out in the old days. Here in the modern day, it's evolved a lot. So the crazy thing is, I'm kind of a statistician, a data analytics guy by trade. So I went through and looked at all these U.S. history records and the censuses and everything, and started playing with it and being like, how many people do we actually have that are Scottish heritage? And two things that I found that were really interesting. One, the U.S. government did a census a long time ago. I think it was about 20 years ago, and they just surveyed how many people feel like they have some kind of a Scottish heritage. And the answer came back somewhere between 20 to 30% of Americans feel they have a Scottish identity. So you take like 350 million Americans, give or take on that. So you go, okay, so we should have like 70 to 100 million people that feel like they're Scottish. And I'm going to tell you right now, that does not math, because there are not 70 to 100 million Americans that have a shared Scottish heritage. But what it was really indicative of is the fact that of all the family history that these people have, they value and they preserve their Scottish lineage more so than most of the other ones. And that's really telling, because it says that people want to have something they can connect with. And the Scottish story, the Scottish engagement, the Scottish lore, it's really rich and it's deep. So people have an affinity towards it. So a lot of people, when they're gathering towards their family history, their Scottish heritage kind of pops up. And I mean, for all of you guys who have been there before, you've been there, you've seen it. It's pretty cool to go back to Scotland and go, yeah, I'll take that. That's yeah, put that on my name.
Oh, for sure.
So that's kind of where it came from. But where it's evolved to today is a lot more, you'll hear it referred to a lot of clan societies. And really what that means at the end of the day is it's run a little bit in the US as kind of a membership group or a club, if you will, but it's got a very, very historical reference associated to it. So our structure is a nonprofit. We've got presidents and VPs. We don't have the same titles. Maybe that'll change in the future, because I'd love to see like North American chieftains underneath the main chief, but you know, that's going to take a little bit of convincing on the other side of the pond. But these societies work very much just like a regular membership. We've got annual dues, we've got annual meetings, we've got leadership in different areas. A lot of them do volunteer organizations. They might have education foundations, scholarship foundations, a lot of organizations that give back. But really what it trickles down to is, if you have the chance to spend time with a people, who do you want to put your time with? Is it your barbecue backyard group? Is it a book club? Is it your, bowling league? Do you got a paintball group? Or is it your, maybe it's your CrossFit guys, but maybe it's your Highland Games Athletics Association. Maybe it's your bagpipe like band, the tattoos. Maybe it's your dance crew that you're doing Irish dance with. So the clan societies kind of fit as one community amongst a bunch of different ones. And like I said, the most common ones you'll see is there's a dance group community, there's bagpipe and music, there's athletics, there's the clan societies, but you'll also have other things like your St. Andrews societies or your festival organizers, and sometimes even like a county or a city group. Like the Chicago Scots is fantastic. They're really well known. Here in Utah, we got the Utah Scottish Association. They do a fantastic job putting on the festivals. But that's a lot of what the clan societies are now, is one piece of a community amongst a whole bunch of Scottish affiliated communities that you can be in.
I'm gonna have to circle back around to that because I definitely want to talk to you about Utah. They just had the Highland Fling in Highland, Utah. What an amazing community that seems to be. But
Hmm.
let's talk about how these historical societies have really been instrumental in preserving Scottish history and genealogy across generations.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that right there in itself seems to be like the number one reason to get in there. But what do you think on that?
Yeah.
How have these historical societies been instrumental in preserving that for
Yeah.
us?
Well, there's definitely two sides of it. One of it is the archival function that's still out in Scotland. So you'll find that there's a lot of museums, there's a lot of libraries, there's a lot of archive functions that still happen out there. And surprisingly, they can be as expensive to maintain those archives as they are some of the castles. You've got old documents, you've got historical references, you've got antiques that have to be well preserved. And if you go back to a lot of the clans, like Scottish clan culture, really like the heyday of it was around like 1250 is kind of where it started. And then it ramped up into the 1400s, and then it kind of tapered in the 1600s, and then leading up to Culloden, which is the kind of a revolutionary war of Scotland before things started to be dispersed. So if you're thinking about these clans out in Scotland that have documents, they can have stuff that's up to 700, 800 years old in part of their clan heritage. And that's really expensive to maintain and keep track of. A lot of those are like tax records, census records, stuff that you just look at it and say, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you start having like swords and kilts and old bagpipes and historical maps and treaties and things like that, there's some pretty cool like antiques that they have on that side of the pond. But what happens out here is the American associations, the North American clans, if you will, those societies, there's a lot of requests to be able to help preserve the things over on the other side in Scotland. And just from the numbers I've run, there's probably about 10 times more people in your clan here in the North American region than there are actual active people out in Scotland. So if you've got 850,000 Campbells, if you were, Campbell affiliates in the US, there's probably about 80,000 out there in Scotland. And I mean, just how the numbers go, you can imagine North America, we've got a little bit more on the resources. We've got a lot of numbers. We've got a lot of collaboration. We've got entrepreneurship and a lot more growth mindset than some of the Scottish counterparts out there. So for us to bring that youth and that engagement and enthusiasm and sometimes tourist dollars out to Scotland, that helps maintain a lot of the archives and the ancient history functions that they've got, especially including a lot of those castles that are they're just old and they're expensive and they're architecturally not great. So organizations like the National Trust of Scotland or Historic Environment Scotland, which is kind of like the Smithsonian of Scotland, if you will. Those are great organizations to keep a membership, to support them on a local drive every once in a while when they're doing fundraising, because they maintain those old archives so that we have the chance to be able to remember what those stories are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And really, anyone who has, a Scottish heritage is probably going to have some love of castles, of battles, brave warriors.
Everybody loves the castles. That's a universal one on that one.
It is for sure. So why do you think that tradition is so strong today? We don't have those castles here, but we yearn for them, right?
Yeah, well, for me, and I look at it and say everybody with a Scottish heritage is like, I want to wear a kilt, I want to swing a sword, I want to go see a castle, and I want to know who the heck this chief guy is because this sounds awesome. And you're right. As Americans, we don't have that same kind of novelty associated to it, but a lot of it's romanticized as what it was. We look at the wars and the history and the battle, and everybody wants to throw a sword up and yell Braveheart's mantra and chant, and it sounds great. But we have those things in American history as well. But sometimes it's nice to kind of romanticize a little bit of what they are. But here in the US, the funny thing is, I think people, they want to dig deep. They want to keep moving through it. They don't want to stop somewhere. They want to be stopped at the most grand, audacious, like fantastic, fanatical thing they could possibly find. And American history builds on that, and then the Scottish history continues it. So I always hope that people look at it and say, feel safe, feel loved, feel appreciated where you stand today, and give you the chance to springboard into the most fantastical history you can possibly engage in. And maybe it's a little romanticized. Maybe most of it's true. But just go engage it, enjoy it, and have the chance to know that you're going to be signing your last name the rest of your life. And if that's the name that you affiliate with your membership to your society, it's not going away, or at least you'll preserve it in your mind and looking at it going, why not dig into that as deep as that rabbit hole goes in whatever country or continent it goes? And that's what I'm always promoting is just keep digging at it until you find something awesome to just enjoy.
That's awesome. And now listen, this is going to be a little bit more of a loaded question, and unfortunately, the listeners don't know you like I do, and I know this is about to be gold, but I'm going to ask you: have you seen any historical societies preserve historical stories or archives that might have been otherwise lost? And I know you've just had a wonderful trip to Scotland, so I'm hoping we get to hear some goodies about that.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's a couple of them in my diggings, and absolutely there's some gems in there. There's a couple of them that I love, and I'll give you two of them. One of them is the story of Dunstafnage Castle, which arguably in the Scottish Highlands out in the west part of Argyll, that is probably one of the most noteworthy and notable and fantastic castle you could ever see. So it's up on the coast of Oban, just a little bit north and was originally a MacDougall castle and passed into the hands of the Campbells from Rob Roy. And some of the stories that happened there, they literally were stories that inspired the Game of Thrones. That's how good some of these stories are, is they just took them right out of the history and said, yeah, let's just whitewash them and make it work. And you look at those and you stand on the grounds and hear these stories of what happened with it was kind of the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. They copied some stuff, but with the battles, with the placements, with all the developments that they had on site with the crypts and the churches, it's pretty cool. And you look at it today, and it's a dilapidated castle. It's not used for anything currently, but there's still a captain that has to sleep in that castle once every year, and they kind of do a little ceremonial, and they bring some family over. But there's some stuff that they do to try to preserve those ancient traditions today that have been going on since 1250. And I have a tremendous love for this castle because I would love to see someday in the future with the youth to be able to stand on the site with maybe, augmented reality goggles and watch these stories unfold on the very land where that happened. And it's something that you really can't go very many places on the planet to get those kind of stories. So Dunstafnage Castle is probably one of my favorites for sure. The other one is there's a lot of really cool archives that, especially in the Campbells, one of these gentlemen named Lord Archibald Campbell pulled out. He was the son of one of the sons of the eighth Duke of Argyll. And he went around and realized that there were tombstone monuments that were done hundreds and hundreds of years ago when he was alive 150 years ago. And they just have the most brilliant, beautiful monuments that they did to these fallen heroes and fallen nobility. And they're these giant 6 foot, 7 foot tombstones with ornate carvings that they put on top of the funeral caskets, and they were just beautiful. And I had the chance to go out to Kilchurn, where they actually had a lot of these old historic monuments in the old ancient land of Dauria. And it was so beautiful to be able to see some of this stuff that was well preserved, and it just has a different nature about it. Because we go to the cemeteries here, and it's like, yeah, you got a little plaque made out of granite, etched with some laser. That's great. Then you go see what they've got and think, man, I wish we should resurrect some of these really old, cool traditions of like, let's make it grand and audacious, because it really does preserve it in your mind to see something that's really, really, really engaging. So those are some of the things I've seen today that in the societies, we try to promote those. We try to promote the histories, the stories, the engagements, and the locations to make sure that when kids grow up, if they're hearing these awesome stories, they can actually go out and touch the stones and walk the castle grounds and see those things that as kids, they're just bedtime stories. So for me, like step one is how many cool bedtime stories can we get so these youth, as they grow up, know that their entire life they can wait to the chance to go step on the grounds of Dunstafnage Castle and look at the vistas and the overviews where so many battles happened and know that they already knew the stories before they ever stepped on the beaches. And for me, that's a huge win if we can help our society members understand those.
I'm ready to book my ticket now.
Let's go, man.
So let me ask you this: how do societies actually balance and celebrate the romantic aspects of Scottish clan history, but keep presenting the historical realities, both the victories and the struggles? Obviously, the
Yeah.
struggles.
Well, I think there's a battle. I wouldn't, maybe not a battle, but there's an imbalance that's happening right now. So out in Scotland, there's an organization called the Standing Council of Scottish Chiefs, and you can consider that being the functional board of all the chiefs of Scotland and what they're trying to do. And one of their biggest objectives right now is trying to preserve the actual history of their individual clans. Because you have people that are, doing spin-offs and anime and romanticizing it and making it more politically correct and they're changing all of these historical facts about 800 years worth of history. So there is a pretty big initiative right now to try to figure out how do we not whitewash our history? How do we keep it and preserve it in its true nature and make sure that's the official sponsored things? Well, you got to balance that with, well, maybe that's like an 800-page volume of your clan history, but I got to tell my kid a bedtime story, so he's excited about this. Like, how do I balance that? And there is a little bit of give and take where the more you dig into it, the more you can find out intricacies and truths about it. One of my favorites is Clint Edwards, who runs the Scottish Clan podcast. He is a fantastic clan historian, where if you're trying to find a great version of as much of the truth as you possibly can, mixed with a little intrigue, Clint Edwards is a fantastic resource on that. Highly recommend him. But you've got to find the balance between which stuff is archival and librarian-ish and what stuff is video game engagement-ish, and how do you find the truths and preserve that? It's a really difficult process, but I think we're starting to find a little bit more balance between the two of them these days.
Okay. Well, let's build off of that because I want to tug on more heartstrings. And so, can you kind of share with us an example of how Clan Campbell have reconnected a member or a family with their roots in a meaningful way that was just, that overflow of beautiful emotion?
Yeah. Well, the fun thing about clans is it doesn't necessarily have to be your last name or your DNA. It really gets to be something that you can hold dear to yourself. And something I've seen over and over and over again are people that maybe it's a maiden name or a grandma's name or there was some great artifacts or stories that came through that direct lineage. And it's so warming for me to look at it and say, it doesn't matter where Clan Campbell or any clan fits into your history. The part is, do you really feel accepted? Do you feel like these are people who have the same morals and values and goals and background that you can really connect with and feel safe with? And if that's the Campbells, go for it. If it's the Stewarts, fantastic. If it's the McDonald's, maybe gut check that because, they're a little bit different. But there's so many good things about so many clans that if you find a way to connect with your ancestors, for me, the real part that tugs at my heartstring is I truly believe that this world is a lot better if you knew who your ancestors were, if you knew where you're going. And I'm a God-fearing Christian who believes that there is a life after death. And if there is a life after death, I really do believe that these people are trying to help us be better on this earth in this life and trying to connect us with things that they can provide. And the only way to be able to do that, connecting with your ancestors, is being part of that organization, being part of that history, the society, the engagements. And even if that's just throwing cabers for your ancestors or swinging swords for your tartan, just do it, because I really do feel like there's a connection that can come and you're not going to get that anywhere else. I hate to say it, but the bowling league just is not as inviting and invigorating as being part of those clan societies. They're great. They work fantastic. Go have the weekend barbecues. But when you dig into your family history and your ancestry, I can guarantee you will find more connection to some kind of a shared value that really tugs at your heartstrings than probably anything short of reading the scriptures and learning about God. So find that clan, dig into that, and I promise it will give you back what you put into it.
So, with that, let's talk about the rise of DNA testing and the genealogy platforms. And obviously, that could be a challenge for some folks just because it's an eye-opening experience. But what about the opportunities to grow?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd want to say more than anything else is don't be afraid to test your DNA and wonder if they're going to kick you out of the society. Because the answer is no, they're not going to do that. There's a lot of people who are like, what if there was an adoption or maybe great great grandpa was a little bit promiscuous? Well, the answer is if you're part of a society and you're helping promote good values and morals and being an example to others, you're going to be 100% accepted. So don't ever be afraid to take those tests. But the cool thing about it, and this gets a little technical, but let me give you an example. If you've got a history, a lot of these Scottish history goes back to about 700s, give or take. And then you can connect in something that they consider like the heraldry. It's like the Loudons or the Brettlebanes or the pure Argyle lines or whatever whatever clan line it has. Sometimes there's these royal lines that you hear all the time. Hate to break it to you, but most people don't fit in one of those for a long, long time. But a lot of the clans have their history back in maybe 1200 to 1400. So that the hard part is, how do you go from 2025 and knowing that you could go up to 1200, 1400, and you're coming back like 300 or 400 years, and then nothing, and it just gaps. There's nothing there. Well, the cool thing is, I don't know if we're ever going to get like magical records coming out of burnt down parishes and castles that have been destroyed. Probably not going to happen. But the cool thing is, if you get enough points of reference, you can kind of triangulate where your genetics came from. So there's a lot of Y-DNA projects that are out right now, and I think like Wiki DNA or Family DNA, one of those. There's a couple of different ones that are starting to build these huge databases of individual contributors, and they do it based on a Y-DNA. And the technical side is, why the Y-DNA? Well, because you've got other ones called autosomal DNA, and that's half mom, half dad. The problem is, if you're half mom, half dad, that DNA strand over 4 or 5 generations just gets so diluted with all your family tree that it gets broken down. But if you've got dad's DNA, that goes from father to son to father to son to father to son, and it's a little bit easier to track because that's probably your last name as well. And that line doesn't degrade over generations. So you can trace it back a lot further with minimal mutations. So what does that do? It basically means that you can go back a lot further. And even if you get stumped on a gap, there might be other people who have a lot more family lines, and you can find that you've got that same DNA marker as they do. And if they go back further, there's a really good chance that you go back further, whether you can see that gap or not. So DNA has been a great chance to say, even if we don't have the records, it might help you build your family history way further back, just with this triangulation of where we're trying to get to and where we're at today. So I think it's a tool. It's not the Aryan race, we're going to kick you out if you're not like the McLeod DNA. That's never going to be the case. But it does show some interesting intrigue if you can trace that back and know, where is your family history? Where did they come from?
I love it. And I'm one of those folks you talk about. I was adopted at birth. My last name on all my legal documentation is Lewis, but I am a member of Clan Campbell. So,
Yeah,
so
perfect example out there.
and to be honest, I can't tell you how welcoming the clan was, and I got the goosebumps, and I started learning about it and everything involved in it. Now, I will tell you, in our family side, there is a McDonald in there too, so that's a whole nother that's a whole nother conversation for another time. I like to think there was a Romeo and Juliet just in kilts out there.
Probably at some point.
At some point, right? But let's kind of talk about over the years, how have these Scottish clan societies involved in North America and globally? Because we've kind of been ramping up this history here, but here we are. You've already spoke on, there's so much more Scottish ancestors here in America than what we'd find in our hometown. So if you could
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit on how that has evolved.
Yeah, well, the coolest thing that really brings everybody together is technology. And it's the fact that you can have a Clan Campbell in New Zealand and in Jamaica and in Canada and in Germany and in Scotland and be able to bring everybody together and have, like I said, it's those shared common values, morals, background, and history. And being able to see that, it's really fun to see how the Australians put their own little take on the clan history and the clan background, or how we do it in North America. So every different country does a great job of bringing their own culture and their own identity into what that clan experience is. And I'll give you a strange preview when you get to Scotland and see this. But the clan makeup and the Highland Games in Scotland are very different than they are here in the US. If you think of it, out in Scotland, they've grown 800 years with these clans and the Tartans and societies. And a lot of times you get these Americans that run over to Scotland and throw a kilt on, and they're really excited to gauge and see everybody in kilts, and they're wearing pants, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you realize, to us out here, it means something on the heritage. For them, that's more of a dress occasion, or it's a ceremonial occasion for it. So sometimes you get a little bit of a misalignment because that romanticized idea that we talked about permeates a little too strong. But here in the States, a lot of our Highland Games are actually clan specific. So we have tons of clan tents and clan engagements. And we do have the athletics and the bagpipe and the Irish dancing. If you go over to Scotland, you won't see very many clan tents. You'll see a home game that's in one location. And the best way to compare it in my mind is here in the States, it's a family history dynamic. Out there in Scotland, it's your favorite sports team. So if you're cheering for the Campbells out there, that's like being an LA Lakers fan here in the US. That's where you grew up. That's what your home state. For me, it's like the Utah Jazz. That's who I root for. Out there, it's very similar. So you're rooting for your Highland Games guys from Inverary and the Inverary Pipe Band and the Inverary Dancers. Like that's what you do. So they travel all around, and you'll actually go to different games in other places in the Highlands just to go see your favorite sports or music athletes, if you will. So it's a very different dynamic than what you traditionally see here in the U.S. But every country has their different spin on it, so it's kind of fun to see what your American Scottish societies have versus all the other ones out there in the world.
And just a quick shout out to the Invenary Pipe Band, who I believe won 2025 Pipe Band of the Year as
Yeah, I
well.
think it was the World Championships. Like there was a
It
lot of
was,
stuff going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was the World Championship. So great plug for them over there. What a great thing. But let me ask you this. So what has Clan Campbell Society North America in particular done well in growing membership and relevance?
Sure. Well, I can tell you a lot of the clan societies are hitting a stumbling block these days. And some of it is because of how memberships have evolved and how youth have evolved. And a lot of the societies these days are having a hard time with aged members. And by aged, I look at it and say the average member of Clan Campbell Society is like 60 years old. And for a growing society, that's really hard to build a long-term organization based on that. So Clan Campbell of North America and a lot of the other societies as well have tried to push to find younger people. And the funny thing is, younger people is like 35 or less than that, which most people are like, those are adults, like full-fledged adults. And it's like, yes, 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 they are. But it's a lot younger than what we've got in a lot of the societies. So Clan Campbell is started redirecting and working with other organizations like COSCA is kind of the clan organized, they're kind of the mentor education group out here with the American Scottish Foundation, with the Scottish government in the US. There's a lot of organizations that are trying to help. Even the Freemasons globally. We had a great chance to meet with Ramsey McGee, the Grand Master Mason out in Edinburgh. And he gave a lot of useful information of how to connect with youth. So some of the things that we've talked about are finding people who have specialties that they can contribute. Find social media, find engagement coordinators, find those young cohorts that really have skills that they want to bring to the table. And we found that youth don't want to just be another member on a roll. Like that's not interesting to them. But if you come to them and say, we need social media, you're a really good thrower, you are a fantastic dancer, we love your skills on the drums, like we need you in these societies, you'll find that they're way more engaged than them just showing up and paying a couple of bucks to be part of a society. So the Clan Campbell Society has been really focusing on defined skills, and then we're also working on technology engagements. A lot of the websites, if you look online, they're built in the 1990s, and they've been maintained successfully through the 1990s. But today's website users aren't librarians; they're not archivists. They're engagement people. They're looking for gamification. They're looking for rounded bubbles and stuff that looks like Amazon.com. That's really what they're looking for. So trying to merge those and figure out how do youth engage, and it's really gamification. It's giving out prizes and tokens and leveling up. And the coolest thing, I think people don't realize, but if you're going to be part of a clan society, you're going to be that for your whole life. So why not have a 10-year level up process? And I don't care how much D&D you've ever played, but if you told somebody you're gonna gamify this for the next 50 years, most people don't even know what to do with that. But for me, I look at it and go, so I get to play the same video game in real life for the next 50 freaking years? Like, take my money, sign me up, I'm in. That sounds like a great evolving organization. So those are a couple of things that we've seen in the clan societies and specifically Clan Campbell that have made a difference these days.
Well, you kind of knocked out our next question too, just talking about the biggest challenges for clan societies today. So I think I think you're hitting it right on the head. I have three daughters. They're all, children under 18, teenagers, teenage girls.
Mhm.
I've dragged them around to Highland Games, and they still probably couldn't tell you everything about a Highland Games, even though they are used to going to one once a month. So
Yep.
I think that's definitely something that we're going to have to tackle. The getting the younger generations, those youth, those under 35, yes, that is the youth for us now,
Yeah, it is.
is making sure that they get out there. But
Yeah, and something that we found with for those who aren't involved on a regular basis, the commissioners in any given state or region are probably the ones who help bring you into the fold. They're the first ones that you engage with. They're the quirky guys in a kilt telling stories. That's who those commissioners are. And we've focused really, really heavily on a three launch mission, which is to help people first belong and just know where they're at. And it doesn't matter what clan society you're coming from, or if you're looking for athletics or dance or music or something else. We just want to make sure you get to people that you feel safe with and comfortable and you have a great time with. So whatever that faction or community or association is, let's get you in there first. So feeling a sense of belonging is the first one. And the next one is to explore. And it's figuring out what is the history, what is the background, what are the skills, what are the attributes, what is the technique, what are those things that you can really go deep down into the rabbit hole and make sure that you are fantastically proficient at. So that's the next one they encourage. And the last one is to build and looking at it saying maybe it's build your membership, maybe it's building your skill base, maybe it's building your family tree, maybe it's building a community tour group to go back to Scotland, maybe it's building the archives out in Scotland to help preserve those monuments. Whatever it is that you're going to build, once you feel like you belong, you've explored what it is, and you've taken the chance to serve and build that item, I think you'll find that there is engagement for 50 years down the road for that. And you'll bring people along with you that also kind of appreciate really what you're building in that world.
yeah, for sure. Now, many people do feel some sense of, pride in their Scottish heritage, but they don't really know where to start. So,
Mhm.
how do the clan societies actually bridge that passion gap?
Sure. So, probably the easiest thing to do is attend your local Highland Games, find those out. And if you don't know where they're at, COSCA, the Council of Scottish Clan Association, is probably the best place to start. So, COSCA.scot is probably the place you'd go, and you can click on it and say, Find my clan, or I think there's a button to look at your games. And those are the resources that'll pop it up and just tell you start locally. And the big thing to dig for is look for that commissioner. And I'm pretty sure if you show up at your Highland Games, you look for a tartan, you talk to the event organizers, and you'll find a dude in a kilt or a gal in a kilt with some really great stories to be able to hear, and they will plug you straight into those organizations. So if you want to learn more about your clan heritage, find that. I also know that the dance, the music, and the athletics are just as inviting, and they usually can point you towards the direction for your clan society as well. So whatever channel it is that you're going down in that community, just find those organizers and ask them, and they'll probably point you back to the clan societies to make a start.
This is where I would like to thank Clan Campbell, Region 12 down in Florida, for opening the door for me. They,
Richard's the man out there for
dude,
sure.
they
Mike
set
Otis and Kit.
they set the tone, and I have not. Now again, I haven't been out west, so this is again no bad blood to anybody else, but on this East Coast, Richard and Co. down in Region 12 sets the bar very high for a clan tent. So
Yeah, they do a fantastic job.
if anybody listening would like to take a vacation in the wintertime, go to Florida. There's all kinds of games, and you will have just a fantastic time down there. But let's talk a little bit more about that bridge to the old world, to the homeland, right? What's the
Sure.
relationship today between the Scottish clan societies in North America and the historical clans in Scotland? I know you've touched on it a little bit, but
Hmm.
what is that heartbeat? What's the pulse like right
Oh
now?
my gosh. Well, I'll tell you some of the big things that I like about the clan societies and what's going on is that it's got a good chance to explore and to really figure out why you're there in the most beautiful scenery that you could ever imagine to be there and explore it. So there's a couple of things I love to do when I'm out there, and I've been out to Scotland a couple of times. And one is take stories with you to prove them out, to feel them. Like here in America, you're never going to go to Gettysburg and walk through the cemeteries without learning the history and watching the movies and organizing it. I look at that and say Scotland has just as much engagement if you prepare the way. And the best way I look at it is I say, don't go tour Scotland. I mean, if you're showing up to eat haggis and buy a kilt, you're probably going to be a little bit misguided as to what you're experiencing. But if you're going out to pilgrimage and really know that there is something ancestral, there is something divine in my mind, there's something that really connects you, but you have to prepare yourself to let that environment sink in. And once you've done that, read the stories, go through your own family history, find out where your most common roots are, if there's cities or towns or pubs. Shockingly, there's a lot of churches that have documentation still. And you can actually get private interviews or private meetings with some of those parishes that are out there and see the archives and see the documents. And they'd love to show you those things. My favorite, and we're a little, I should say, we're very blessed as the Clan Campbell to be able to have Torquil Campbell, the Argyle family, and he's the Duke of Argyle, and the Duchess Eleanor is a fantastic family. Rory and Archie and Charlotte are amazing human beings, and they're so much fun to be able to talk to. And I know not all clans have the chance to be able to interact and engage with your clan chiefs. A lot of them do. But sometimes they've got their second or third generation that are out there being part of the communities. They're attending events. They're there for the annual general meetings. But if you get a chance, usually your society is the best way to integrate in and have some good engagements with your clan chiefs. And it's not just the Campbells going out to see the Duke. We had the chance to meet with Andy and his wonderful wife Malcolm. They were a fantastic couple, and his brother is the chief of Clan Malcolm. But they took us out to Duntroon Castle, and we had a wonderful dinner and a presentation, and had a chance to talk with them. And I have a lot more respect for the Clan Malcolm community and society because of my interactions with Andy and Lucy, and they're just fantastic people. And we're definitely going to go back and see them and visit them and stay on the castle grounds in the future. I'm really excited to take my wife over there. So I'd highly encourage, don't just go out there and do your clan, go do the best Scottish engagements that you can get, because some of those kind of exceed your own clan into things that are just fantastic and engaging. So don't limit yourself, but definitely go out, pilgrimage your clan, and then go experience the whole Scottish environment out there when you have the chance.
Definitely start with your own clan. I tell you what, my cousin Trish, bless her heart, she told me the story about when she went into the hotel there in Inverness, and her last name is Campbell. And when she walked in for her reservation, she gave her the information, the lady at the desk, and the lady looked up and said, "Oh, welcome home." And it's just like one of those things that is just so amazing. I get goosebumps right now just thinking about it. But and you've kind of already touched on this a little bit, so let's talk about some of the Scottish institutions out there and the clan chiefs. Do they see these overseas societies as actual cultural partners, or how do these relationships grow between us here in America and our homeland there?
Absolutely. Well, I can give you some of the examples, like the Argyles, the Clan Campbell chief and family out there. I know he's a fantastic human being, like a wonderful. I'd hang out with him if I could on a regular basis. Like, he's a great guy. And I know he fosters the community. Like in Inverary, recently the George Hotel was recently repurchased and changed hands after, I think it was 150 years. And big shout out to the guys out there, because that is a fantastic inn and hotel to be part of. And I've been in the pub, spent my 40th birthday in the pub, just sitting at a table enjoying it in the George, and it was amazing. But the chiefs often take care of a lot of their area around, and they help support the community, the public. They usually have games in their hometowns, and they're very, very inviting for people to come over from anywhere. So obviously they support the local community, and the societies do a big push to try to help the chiefs and help the territories out there, support the local archives, support the local castles that they might be maintaining. And a lot of it is through tourism. It's go out, have a banquet, support the pubs, go enjoy a little bit of the trinkets and bring a few Scottish memorabilia back home. And the chiefs are very supportive of that. I know the Duke of Argyle actually runs his own gift shop in their castle, just to get the chance to be able to have these unique engagements with the people. So he's a fantastic family, fantastic human being. So the chiefs, often in representing the clan, they do have a lot of economic engagement. I'll be straightforward on that. But they have a love for the people all over the world. And I've listened to many a podcast and heard the chiefs talk many times that these are global clans. This isn't just a local region. It's not, if you're not a Clan Campbell member in Scotland that that's not how it works. They embrace the entire planet to make sure that everybody feels like they belong and that they can explore and that they can help give back and build. I know in Inverary they're actually building a new whiskey distillery. The Duke is actually the ambassador for one of the whiskey brands out there, and they're building a distillery on site by the castle to be able to let people come in and experience what it's like having a whiskey tasting with the Duke of Argyll and his own preferred whiskey brand. And in my mind, it could be whiskey, it could be dancing, it could be whatever. But just the fact that such a wonderful engagement can happen out there, you can't get that here in the States very often. We just don't get that uniqueness and the engagement to that level. And I'm so proud to be part of Clan Campbell with the Duke and his ambitions to do that. So I'm looking forward to the day that the distillery opens in, I think it's 2028-ish. And going over there and helping out. I hope it's a huge party with a ribbon cutting to be able to support him and his engagements.
I will have to invite him to Kentucky. We are the bourbon capital of the world.
Oh yeah.
There's also a funny Campbell link to Kentucky. I believe I've talked to some people within the clan that has disproved this, but within one of the bourbon distilleries, there is a Campbell buried that says he is directly related to the Duke, the fourth Duke of Argyll, fifth Duke of Argyll,
Yeah.
one of the Dukes that didn't have children. So I
Yeah.
believe it was proven inaccurate, but it's still there in Kentucky, and I would love to introduce him to
Yeah.
my bourbon making friends.
I'm sure he would enjoy it greatly. He
uh,
definitely does a good whiskey tasting. I don't drink myself. I'm abstained for that,
right.
but man, he does do a fantastic job of engaging people on things that he loves. So that's fun.
Right, right. So let me ask you this. So I guess it's kind of all of us, but who are the champions in overcoming, challenges to make sure that we preserve all these entities, to preserve Clan Campbell, Society North America,
Oh
to
gosh.
preserve the Duke? How do we protect the Duke?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is we don't have any crazy military factions causing any stupid things going along. But I'll be honest, there is a huge need in Scotland within the societies and the clans out there to be able to help preserve some of these fantastic monuments. They are expensive, they're old, a lot of them are falling down so that I mean, just if you can think about the amount of like structural engineering and preservation that needs to happen just to make sure these castles can be viewed. And some of them now are just they're chain linked off and they're walled off because they're just not safe anymore.
Right.
And you can imagine what it might cost to throw some good AC into a castle during the hot season. It is astronomically expensive. So I know on that side, there's a lot of economic need that as a U.S. society or part of it, do your tourism. Go watch Outlander and take the tour out there. Go reenact your Braveheart scenes. Go do whatever your heart content on it because sometimes it's just fun to go out to Scotland and enjoy it. I'm pretty sure that down the road, my wife and I, we will have a place out in Oban to be able to just settle down, enjoy the seashore, have some langostinas, eat some nice shrimp, and just be able to enjoy a beautiful, serene environment. So part of it is an American culture. Do the tourism, enjoy it out there. But when it comes to the U.S. serving those clan societies, I think the biggest thing that I could ask is don't be afraid to volunteer. Don't be afraid to take a little piece of your heart and put it into that organization, knowing that that's part of you and it's going to be better because of you, not just being part of the crew. And I think there was a lot that happened post COVID where all of a sudden, COVID came and went, and suddenly our backyard barbecue groups were gone. Our book clubs fizzled out. Our bowling leagues were a little dissipated. Even the alumni association suffered. Like everybody in the world post COVID looked at it and said, I don't know if I know how to community anymore. I've kind of lost a piece of it. And they started looking around to try to find, well, who's going to invite me over? Who can I invite over? Like, do I want to be the guy in charge of this organization? And it was kind of sad because there was a lot of things politically in North America where there were movements, there was ideology, there was social media, and cancel culture in and of itself. I look at it and say it wreaked havoc on really good organizations because people stopped for a minute and said, I'd stand up for these mortals' values, goals, accomplishments, but I don't want to get crucified on social media. Like if I've ever said one wrong thing, they're just going to crucify me. And I think it took a lot of great people who have morals and values and standards that we should be looking up to. We should be like these men and women because they're virtuous, because they have good things, not because they're perfect, but because they represent who we want to be in the future and we want our kids to be like, and we want to be part of an organization that represents those. And I think we've lost some of that. And in now's day and age, I think the family societies, I think these clan societies especially, are great places where we can feel safe and grow and know that we don't have to be perfect, but we do need to stand up and take a little bit of a stand as leaders and say, you know what? I'm going to take my turn. And this might be a little different than American politics. You can be a politician for life out here, and that works. I don't think you need to do that in the clan society. What I think is take your turn, step up to the plate, bring some ideas and some skills and some goals into play, and make it engaging and interacting, knowing that you're going to hand off a great organization to the next gal or the next guy or the next committee or administration. And that's okay. They're not going to kill that organization. They're not going to destroy it. They're going to build on it. But I think there's too many people who feel afraid to step up to the plate and put their time and energy into it because they don't know what will happen. And the cool thing is, I can tell you today, it'll be around for another 800 years as a clan society. So don't feel like your 3 or 5 or 10-year like commitment to it is going to destroy it, because I'm pretty sure the only thing you're going to destroy is the next guys in the athletic fields that want to toss a caber. Hopefully your clan absolutely clobbers the competition in that field. But your society, it's just going to grow and develop. And I hope that as members here in the US, that we take our turn, step up to the plate, and try to make it better for our children in the future.
Well, that's actually a good segue, because are there, any cultural exchanges or projects you'd love to see grow between our Scottish communities overseas and our societies here?
Yeah, I'll put a great shout out. I had the chance to meet Colin Gray from the Scottish government in the U.S. He's basically an ambassador for Scotland, for all intents and purposes. And I had the chance to sit down with him personally and just ask him, what is Scotland doing? What are they engaging in? How do we work with them as an organization to be able to grow and develop? And it's great because they've got all their Outlander and their Braveheart and their whole bunch of Highlander stuff, and that's great. And they love the tourism. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't know that Scotland actually has one of the foremost aeronautical engineering basically setups in all of Europe. So if you're going to be launching off a rocket from Europe somewhere, especially in the UK, it's going to go out of Scotland. So they got kind of the Cape Canaveral up there. Okay. They've also got green energy and climate change, basically initiatives. So they've got water turbines, green energy, a whole bunch of stuff. Green energy, what are they? Windmills. And they're trying to be the foremost for what it looks like to be a sustainable green energy. I think right now they're a net exporter of energy and one of the only countries in all of Europe that produces more green energy than they consume as a country. And the other one that I loved is, it's kind of weird to think of this, but Glasgow is a huge technology and gaming hub. Like, I never would have got the idea for it, but you go to Glasgow and it's very, very similar to like uptown Miami in Florida. Like, it's a youth culture. It's very up and coming. They've got tons of arts. They've got fantastic public transportation. Like, Glasgow really is kind of a mini Miami that I would have no hesitation to hang out with the people out there. So one of my daughters actually has a chance to do a foreign exchange out there in the future, and I am super excited for her to try to understand the accent in Glasgow. That's going to be a trick for her, but the environment, the culture is fantastic. So those are a few of the things that I've learned about Scotland that I had no idea, and I'm excited to see how those roll out in the future.
I think it's great too. You mentioned the water turbines. I think that's the latest viral one going around, what Scotland is doing, and that to me that's amazing. That's great. Use the currents. How smart is that? It's always
my personal hope. I kind of look at it and go, so you're telling me that you're shooting rockets into space and you're doing a whole bunch of green energy with massive technological feats. I'm like, are you guys like the foremost terraformers on the planet? Like, if we're going to terraform anything, it's going to come out of Scotland. I think that's a great brand. So we'll see if it catches on. Who knows?
For sure. So tell me in your experience, what resonates most with members of the clan society? You know, we see a lot of facets to clan societies in the modern day. Is there a common theme of what resonates between, you know, the history, the family genealogy, athletics, Highland dancing,
Yeah.
bagpipes, the beautiful countryside itself?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to argue about the countryside because you're never going to see a level of neon green in in nature as you will out in Scotland. So, that one's hard to argue. But I would say really deep down, what you find in the society is that everybody has a moment in their life that they really want to know where they came from. Like, what are they made of? Who did they come from? What are the things that really make up who they are? And I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis because it's very different than that. You're not going to, go do something crazy, but you really stop and look at your life and just think, where did I come from? Who am I? Where am I going? And it's so interesting to say that, the clan societies aren't going to replace a need for God in your life or a need for, self-esteem and self-worth. Just going out to Scotland will get you a little bit happier. But if you've got anxiety or depression or these kind of things, it's not necessarily the green trees and the castles that'll fix it. It's understanding who you are in your heart. And I had the chance to talk with Paul Allen, who is the founder of Ancestry.com. He's an anchor guy here in the state of Utah. And I talked to him about what ancestry work does for the human soul. And he had some great insights. We're talking about it, saying the people who understand their history, their ancestry, their genealogy, those fan charts for whatever they're worth, they have a lower sense of depression. They have a better sense of self-identity, of self-worth. They have a better community to work with. They have a bit higher respect for elders. They usually have a lot more resource support. I mean, you think like scholarships and grants, that the people that you're part of have a bigger reason to support you as a family member than they do anybody else on the planet. They could support 6 billion people, but they're going to support you because you are a Stewart or you're a McLeod or McClellan. Those are the people that they want to support. And it's just giving them a chance to stand up. And I've seen it in my own kids. My daughter, Madison, who's 11 years old, and she will go at a 14-hour pace for 3 days straight at the Highland Games and not complain for a moment. And I see the relationship she builds with these people, and I look at it and say, I can't replicate that anywhere. There's no video game, there's no YouTube video, there's nothing I can do that can replicate the self-esteem and self-worth that she gets walking away and saying, Dad, I know I'm a Campbell and I love it. And I'm glad that I can bring that to other people. And I'm just sad for people who aren't Scottish, that they don't have that heritage. I have to stop her there and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's a lot of great other societies out there, but I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. So those are some of the things that are near and dear to me because I believe deep down in my heart that the benefits that come from societies and organizations, that those are the antidote of the cancel culture that we've seen that's caused a cancer in our environment of disassociation, of caustic cutting, of being able to downplay people and take one thing in somebody's life and destroy their life because of it. And on the other side, these clan societies, they're taking the morals and values and goals and realizing no matter what you do, we're going to help build you up, develop you, help you be a better person down the road. And that's something that we desperately need right now is that antidote to the cancel culture that we've so desperately tried to pull out of our own souls.
So that kind of means you see these societies as more of heritage keepers, almost like cultural ambassadors in their communities to
I
offset
see
that.
that a lot, but I see that the societies are just one aspect of community groups because I do believe many of the community groups, like athletics, like dance, like bagpipes, like just cultural festival societies, they have a fantastic ability to bring you friends, colleagues, associates, combatants. I mean, they can be your extended family. But I do see at some point you're going to come back to the clan, to your namesake, to your heritage, and wonder, not am I an athlete? Because you can win a gold medal and still sit on the sideline and go, but now who am I? I'm the best caber tosser in the entire world. But do I really feel like I've got a place in this world individually? And I really do believe those clan societies can help you feel that deep down into your soul.
For sure. Well, listen, let's talk about the future. All right. What makes clan societies relevant to younger generations who live in a very different world from their elders, from us
Yeah.
older folks?
Well, what I believe deep down is the future of societies is engagement. So the clan societies are trying to provide a unique engagement with compelling stories that last for generations. And I hope deep down that most of those things that grab them aren't just games or stories at bedtime, but they're real things that have fulfillment and a path for them down the road. And I bet it's going to be at their level. So you're going to see things that are going from an archival librarian approach that has been very successful for a lot of years to a lot more interactive, hands-on, gamified, leveling up, and a lot of technology usage for it. So there's going to be a lot of shift of how people use technology. Probably the most relevant example is just the advent of WhatsApp. You've got people all over the country that are trying to figure out text groups versus email campaigns versus, and it's very hard. But just centralizing things and saying, hey guys, we have a society Facebook page, which arguably is for people who are over 40, if you didn't know. Anybody that's probably a clear delineation for young kids. How old are you? You use Facebook? Okay, you're old. Great. There's a lot of old people in the societies. That's fine. But how do we get that on a technological aspect to the younger ones and using things like WhatsApp or Slack channels or different group me's and bands and different things like that? They really do expound what we're going to catch in terms of people under 40 and 35. So we're going to see a lot more of those moving. I really do believe that we're actually seeing the advent of things like virtual reality and augmented reality and online engagements, because a lot of these stories that we hear, it's one thing to hear the story, but it's another to be a part of it. And as crazy as it is, having things like an Oculus headset or an engaging, environment where you can play with these things or in these things, I think is going to give a lot more validation. So kids look at it and not only say, hey dad, I was able to jump online and blow up somebody else's castle and it was fantastic. Can we go see that castle someday? I'd love to actually walk the territory. It'd be like, I stood on this rampart and shot the other dude's castle in virtual reality. But I think it makes a difference for those kids to grow up and have a passion for their heritage. So those are some of the things technological I think are going to make a huge difference.
My nerd brain is going off so much right now, just because I think, your average listener is probably not going to think like this, but I think about everything in that castle, from the way the staircase was made for, being a right-hander. Most Scots were right-handed, so they made it to where they couldn't draw their sword if they were coming up the stairs, but you could draw it coming down the stairs and defending.
Yeah.
And now I just want some goggles, and I want to go see if I can defend the castle.
Well, hang tight, man, because I spent a lot of time and energy LiDAR scanning some of the Dunstaffnage Castle and Urquhart and Kilmoon and some of these, because I want kids to be able to explore in the way they experience things. And that's way more engaging than just a bedtime story. It really does happen to have a little bit of VR goggles in it.
Listen, I wanted you to bring that up in the very beginning. We should probably do a whole nother show on the LiDAR scan. I can't even begin to tell you how amazing that was, watching you actively do that and post those little gems for us. I appreciate that so much. But let's get into this, because I think you are a huge player in Clan Campbell North America, obviously, in the clan itself. So take me into your mind. If you had to imagine our clan society in
Yeah.
25 years from now, what do you envision? What does it look like digitally, personally, culturally? You've touched on some of this, so let's really dive into what you think.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the whole framework, and it really starts with the kids. Because what we found today is adults, and I'm looking at it saying, parents with kids that are teenagers and not off on their own, married and moved on. A lot of those adults don't know the stories. They don't know the engagement. They might have an understanding, but unless they've really gone soul searching and gone through the societies, they don't know what the cool parts are of their organization society. So for me, the framework is we've got to get those parents engaged and understanding the stories. But it's really hard to get them to learn those unless we talk to the kids first. And what I have found that is so useful is let's make this stuff so engaging, so inviting, so entertaining that the kids are captivated by such a rich heritage they've got. And what I found is if you try to engage the parents to be able to teach the kids, it doesn't work very well. But if you go straight to the youth and teach them these things, the parents are delighted that you're bringing up some of the coolest things that they've probably not heard of yet. But then you go to their elders, and the elders love it and support it and are so fantastic. I have met so many amazing commissioners in all over the country. And I mean, guys like Dr. Mike and Larry Campbell and his whole entire family. There's so many amazing commissioners that I just look to and I'm like, these guys are wealth of knowledge. Eric Campbell, our current president, and Jeff McDermott. I have just sat and been in awe at how inspiring and educational and loving these gentlemen are. And a lot of the women of the organization are the most nurturing, caring, dedicated women. I could trust my daughter wholeheartedly to some of these women. They're amazing. But we're not connecting this wealth of knowledge amongst these elders and veterans of the clan societies to be able to connect them with the youth. So over the next 10, 15, 25 years, what I look at is how can we bridge the gap to bring these youth into an environment where they're excited so that their parents will look at it and engage so that these elders can bring all of these stories and history and background and just bridge the gap between the two. And I just get really excited to think, what would it be like when everybody goes to these family parties and it's not crazy grandpa telling kilt stories to the kids. It's you go to the family parties and being like, Grandpa, I want to hear another story. Like, we keep having to come to these family parties and it only lasts 2 hours. Like, how many stories do you have? And just seeing that and feeling that and walking the lands and seeing the castles and hearing the stories on a level that little kids, as well as parents and adults and their elders, can all join together and just have fantastic experiences. And I'd love the day when people look at it and pilgrimage as families. And that is my goal, is looking at it saying, when the kids and the parents and the adults look at it and go, hey, we could go on a Disney cruise, or you know what we could really do? Let's all meet out in Scotland and meet the Duke, the Chief, see the castles, enjoy the walks, check the battlegrounds, and feel something as a family together. And they could do that anywhere. They could do that. You could go to Florida, you could go to Canada, you could go to Hawaii or Europe. But what would happen if a family stepped on the sacred ground where their ancestors walked? And I believe that the ancestors noticed that. I believe that God notices that. And that there's some kind of a give back, that going to Disneyland is going to be cool. But going to Scotland to see these things where you have deep emotional roots, I think you pick something up a little bit different that's vastly noticeable. And the day that we get there, I think that's worth celebration, when we actually get to experience those things together.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, real quick, if anybody's listening and they haven't ran to go join a clan society yet,
Mhm.
and they want to get involved, tell them, what should their first step be?
The first step, I bet you've already taken the first step, because if you're listening to Rally the Tartans and you've seen a Highland game and you've wondered how the crud that dude tosses that caber, then you've already started. So the first thing is, I'd welcome all of you guys, because you're already part of that journey to belong. Now all you have to do is go find a commissioner. So look up for your local games, go on Costco.Scott's website and find who the local people are, the local society, and be part of it. Most of them are fairly inexpensive. They're $25 to $50 a year, and they provide, newsletters, sometimes printed journals. They'll invite you to organizations and events, and sometimes it's barbecues or Burns dinners or the Kirkin on the Tartan celebrations during the October seasons that are fantastic. So find a way to connect with the group, and then just start exploring. And if that means picking up Grandpa's bagpipe, or it means doing a little bit of dancing and going to a ceilidh, a dance event, whatever it is, just figure out a way to be part of one of those communities. And remember that this can go for the rest of your life. So there's no hurry. There's no rush. You're not going to break anything if you can't make one meeting or one Highland Games event, but just keep engaging with it, keep interacting with it. And I can promise you that it will give you more back by being part of that community than just about anything you could possibly find, save coming closer to God himself. So be part of your family, engage with your community, dig for your roots, and just go show up and watch some guy toss a caber. That's really where it starts.
A caber flying through the air is definitely exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know this is going to be probably the toughest question I ask you all day because of the deep pool of amazing things that you've been involved with, but what's been your most powerful personal moment as a part of the Clan Campbell Society?
Oh, geez. I can honestly say my grandpa Campbell, Clarence Randall, was one of the most inspiring men I have ever thought of. And it is so refreshing to me to look at it and know that everything that this clan is and what it's trying to build, I had this moment in my heart where I looked at Grandpa Campbell and thought he was the Campbell. And to me, he still is the Campbell. And I held him in such high regards. He passed away many years ago. And I just looked at it and I thought, what if I get out to Scotland? What if I dive into this society? What if I dig into all this and I realize that it's not my Grandpa Campbell? And I had a lot of fear and I had a lot of hesitation. And it just as luck had it, I had the chance to go to Scotland on my 40th birthday. And my wife and I looked at it, and shockingly, the Inverary Games at the seat of the Campbell Castle happened to be on my 40th birthday. And I looked at that and said, I don't know if God aligned the stars on that for a purpose, but we're going to take it. And it was so inspiring for me to go with my wife and go out there, and they have this beautiful standing stone at the top of the Highland Games field in Inverary. And I remember going out and seeing these iconic things. And I mean, we don't have standing stones here. And I realized there's some deep energy and some deep power in these monuments and markers. And I went with my wife and we just stood at the top of the field right next to the standing stone. And we had the castle in the background and we had all the games happening in the foreground. And it was cloudy and a little overcast and a little bit of sprinkled rain, which was fantastic. And I felt deep down in my heart that everything my grandpa had raised me to be was true. And that this organization really does support those morals and values and goals and behavior. And that I could be just like my grandpa and I could teach my kids how to be just like my grandpa by being part of that society. And it touched my soul and changed my outlook forever. And I have a picture of my wife and I over by that stone, and I will cherish that forever because that was a moment where I realized that my next 60 years can help people feel that same energy that my Grandpa Campbell put into me for many, many years. And we could virtually bring that to everybody. It doesn't matter what clan you're part of. Just go down that path, feel that love, embrace your ancestors, and make it a better place for the people in the future. And I can promise you, you'll feel that same feeling in your heart to know that this is absolutely the best organization you could possibly be in for yourself and for your posterity.
Well, if you could leave one lasting message about the value of heritage,
Mhm.
of these societies to our listeners, what exactly would it be?
Go explore. Like deep down in my heart, you already belong. You know it. You feel it. You've got it in your heart. But if you've got the chance to just go dig into it and put more into it in the hopes that it will come out, don't be afraid. Don't shy away from it. Give it everything you've got and you'll find it will give you more back than anything you can possibly do. So, you already belong. Now it's time to explore and know that someday you're going to be asked to build and put all your energy into it. And that's all I could ever ask from your listeners out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Adam, thank you so much for sharing your time, your insights with us today, your dedication to building and strengthening not only Clan Campbell, but clan societies everywhere, both here in North America and in Scotland. It just really highlights the important role these organizations are playing in preserving our heritage while creating community for future generations. So, for our listeners, if you've been inspired by Adam's perspective, now is the perfect time to go and get involved, whether it's by joining your local clan society, attending games, or simply learning more about your heritage. Adam, it's an absolute honor to have you. I know our audience is going to walk away with a deeper appreciation for the work you and so many others are doing. Again, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing how Clan Campbell and these Scottish societies continue to grow over the years ahead. And I hope you will come back on with us to revisit more of this in the future.
It would absolutely be my pleasure. So thanks for letting me on, Michael. And I'm looking forward to hearing way more of the podcast as well. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Have a great one. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Are you ready? The field is set. The athletes are primed and the clans are coming in full force. There's more than just a competition here. It's history in motion, a celebration of strength, skill, and Scottish pride. So raise your voices, cheer for your champions, and let's make this September's Highland Games one for the ages. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a stacked Absolutely stacked September coming for you all across the country. Starting out the first weekend with some very old and historic ones. Long Peak Scottish Irish Highland Festival in Colorado, Kalamazoo Scottish Festival and Highland Games in Michigan. We even have in Quarryville, PA, the Scottish Festival there. Now, one that's near and dear to my heart is the legendary Kerry Overfelt, the godfather of the Highland Games in Kentucky, and a dear friend of mine. On September the 20th, the NASGA Legends Masters National Championship. They have just opened up amateur registration for that Sunday. Go fill it up, ladies and gentlemen. Come to the Bluegrass State and enjoy one of the most prestigious games we can offer. Guys, I'm also looking forward to that day because the Woodridge Highland Games and the Blue Ridge Championship will also be taking place that same day in Livingston, Virginia. If you guys are familiar with the Going Road podcast, Mr. Jeremy over there, he's the one that will be hosting that. I can't tell you how amazing those guys are and what a huge asset to this sport. They make us all better. Jeremy, I hope you have a great one out there, buddy. I hope it turns out perfect for you. There is also going to be a stone lifting competition at Woodridge that weekend. Can't wait to see that. Stone lifting is huge. We don't talk about it enough, and it should be at every Highland Games. That is just my opinion. Do what you want with that information. After that, I believe it's a Danny Webster affair over at the Backyard Rebellion. North Georgia Highland Games coming up to round out the month of September on September 27th. Pioneer Highland Games are going on in Washington that same weekend, September the 27th. And then we, of course, still have some back on this side of the country. Thistle Day Highland Games, which is also the New York State Championship. Guys, it is full of championships in September. Make sure you register and go compete. And if you're not competing, go volunteer. Go out there and judge. Make sure that you support these. And if they don't need any help, go out and cheer on your favorite thrower. We can't tell you how much we appreciate the crowd participation as a thrower. I love to hear the hoot and hollering. I try to put on a show myself when I compete, and I love to hear the crowd respond, especially when we bust out those cabers. Ladies and gentlemen, if you need any information on one of these games, we are going to start providing that on our social medias as well as our website, rallythetartans.com, which will be coming soon. Guys, we appreciate you. We want you to get out here and support these games. And now to our historical conversation. Today, we're diving into one of the most iconic symbols of Scotland. Kilts and tartans. From the ancient cloth fragments to global fashion runways, tartans carry a story of resilience, identity, and pride. Let's walk through its journey. Now, how have tartans evolved from that Falkirk cloth to the Highland dress? Well, it's very simple. The tartan's journey begins very simple. That Falkirk tartan, a small fragment of cloth found near the Antonine Wall, dating back to the 3rd or 4th century. It wasn't that bright plaid that we picture today, but a muted check pattern woven from natural wool. It shows us that even in Roman era Scotland, people were experimenting with patterned cloth. From there, tartan slowly evolved. By the late 1500s, Highlanders were wearing the fil de mor, or the great kilt. This was essentially a huge piece of cloth tartan, about 5 yards long, pleated and belted around the waist, with the upper half draped over your shoulders so you could use it as a cloak to get out into that wonderful Scottish rain. It was an incredible, practical piece of equipment for the rugged Highlander, doubling as clothing by day and a blanket by night. In the early 1700s, this adapted into what we now recognize as the modern kilt, the fil de big, or the little wrap. Tailors separated that lower half, sewing in pleats for easier wear, while that upper cloak was abandoned. That transformation shifted tartans from a purely functional garment into a distinct piece of Highland dress. So the story of the tartan is one of evolution, from a fragment of woven cloth to the great kilt of the Highlands, and finally into the modern kilt that we know today, carrying not just practicality, but identity and tradition. Now, what started, like we said, as a purely practical piece of clothing for warmth, versatility, and even that built in blanket, it's eventually became a badge of Scottish identity. The tartan story isn't always about fashion. After the Jacobite Rising, the British government passed the Dress Act of 1746, banning kilts and Highland dress as a way to suppress rebellion. For nearly 40 years, tartans were outlawed. When the ban was finally lifted in 1782, a cultural revival began. Highland societies and even royalty, especially King George IV, famously visited Edinburgh in 1822, orchestrated by Sir Walter Scott, and that helped turn the kilt into a symbol of pride rather than rebellion. Now, the tartan itself is defined by crossing bands of color called sets, woven into wool. Historically, patterns often reflected local resources or dye traditions. Early colors came from natural dyes like lichens, alder bark. Later, the tartan became a more mass-produced, and synthetic colors expanded that palette. Today, tartans are formally cataloged in the Scottish Registry of Tartans, ranging from ancient clan sets to modern corporate and commemorative designs. Of course, tartans are most often associated with clans, while not always strictly tied to a family in antiquity. By the 19th century, tartans were standardized and heavily marketed as markers of clan identity, sometimes more out of romanticism, commerce than strict historical accuracy. That's what we see today. Now, if you ask me, there's a lot of great kilt makers out there in the Highland Games world. A lot of athletes use sports kilt. I went with USA kilts because my cousin recommended them to me. You can find something out there for everyone. I highly recommend looking into some of these independent kilt makers as well. You can order directly from Scotland or have them made right here in America. So what does that look like though? The exposure and the global appeal. Well, in that 19th century Highland revival, obviously, if you've followed any of the history, it was fueled by Queen Victoria's love of Scottish traditions. It pushed that tartan into the spotlight and helped create our identity, our Scottish identity. As Scots immigrated across the world to Canada, to Australia, to the US, New Zealand, those tartans traveled with them. Today it's worn as at the Highland Games and Tartan Day parades and clan gatherings worldwide, and it's a touchstone of our heritage and a belonging. Ties us back to our ancestors. There's a lot to be said for the tartan, and there's a lot of different ways to wear it. We just would like for you to wear one. We want you to feel a sense of belonging when you put it on. And that's why these clan societies are still important today. They represent what that tartan means: family, togetherness. And it's just a way for us to reach back to our roots and bridge that connection, past time, culture. So, from outlawed cloth to a worldwide cultural symbol, tartans have carried Scotland's story across centuries and continents. It's not finished yet. Every new tartan design, every Highland gathering continues that legacy. We're super proud that you're here listening to us talk about that legacy and can't wait to hear your own version of what kilts tartans to you. Friends, as we wrap up this journey through the colors, patterns, and meaning woven into every thread of tartan, we're reminded that it's more than fabric. It's identity, history, and pride carried across generations. A huge thank you to Adam Campbell for joining us and sharing his insights, passion, and dedication to keeping our heritage alive and thriving. His words remind us that tartans aren't just worn, it's lived. So whether you wear your kilt on the field, at the games, or in daily life, remember this. Every stripe, every color tells a story, your story, and ours together as a community. Until next time, keep your heads high, your kilts swinging, and your tartans flying. This is Rally the Tartans, where tradition meets strength and heritage lives on.